bring the most powerful women in process mining together.
Because only then we can move faster and grow bigger, right?
Pave the way for process mining together.
Welcome to Process Pioneers, the show that takes a deep dive into the minds of decision makers, key influencers, and process experts who are pioneering the world of everything process. Well, welcome to the episode 150 of Process Pioneers. My name is Daniel Rayner. I'm the host of Process Pioneers. And what a journey this has been so far. I was just saying just a couple of seconds ago how amazing the journey has been over the past couple of years. 150 guests, although it's probably a little bit more because we've had a few episodes with multiple people joining us for an episode. So over 150 guests in this series talking about their experiences and perspective, their journey from all different areas of the world of process management. And I'm sure that a lot of the guests or attendees that are watching this right now live, this is we haven't done many live episodes. I think we've actually only ever done one live episode, if I'm not mistaken. So it's our second live episode 150. It's definitely going to be a fantastic one. But people from all different areas of business process management has been in this series. If you are joining us for the first time, because you may not have heard of the series up until now. So if you are joining us, we do have many other episodes for you to go and glean from the expertise, the experiences from those that are maybe a few steps ahead of the journey than you. So please go onto any of the podcast streaming platforms of choice, or your platform of choice. Also, we publish the episodes on YouTube and LinkedIn as well, so you can view them there. If you have been watching the episode for a while, I'd love a rating or a review. Our goal is to continue to spread this knowledge, share this information, and a rating and review is certainly going to help us do that. So I would encourage you to do that. That would help us out a lot. But without further ado, let's jump into today's episode. I have the absolute privilege of sitting down with Gabriela Galic and Christine Hunter, both women in the field of process mining and have been for some time. So very excited for this conversation. Gabby, Christine, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
So what I want to start with is, because process mining, it's a topic that's been around for a while. As I talk to more people, I'm hearing people mention that they caught wind of it or were hearing things about it as early as 2005 and even earlier. Obviously, it's only become quite popular or more popular in the last couple of years as technology advances and more organizations are adopting it in a practical sense as opposed to, being more theoretical. So, but I think what would be good to start off with is give us a little bit of a background or context into how you found yourself in this world of process mining. Gabby, maybe we start with you.
All right. Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure. So first of all, quick introduction from my side, Gabriela Galic, my name, and I'm a manager at the Deloitte Center for Process Bionics, located in New York City. So my job is basically conducting a process mining project for several clients around the US. Exactly. And how I ended up here is basically, good point, Daniel. So process mining exists for a while now, right? The first time I kind of was introduced to process mining was during my universities. I think this was around 2014. I was studying information management, and one part of it was business process management. And then one course within business process management was process mining. So that's when I heard the first time about this great technology. And I remember back then we the only thing we did is basically we uploaded a CSV file to the Disco tool, which was back then very much used in the academia space. Exactly. So that was the first time I kind of used process mining. And how this developed is then during my master's, I came across Celonis, right? Because I'm from Germany, I'm from Munich. Celonis was founded in Munich, so it's a small city. So it kind of was obvious that you kind of end up there. And then, that's how I kind of learned everything from scratch, right? Back then I was an intern, but then I fell in love with the topic and it was so interesting. So I stayed there as a freelancer as well for a couple more months. And then afterwards, I joined BMW. I was a Scrum Master there in IT department for business intelligence projects. And then I realized really quickly that when I was doing BI, that I was missing process mining, because for me, it was just so much cooler. It was so much more stuff you could do and so bring so much more value to the company. And then when I basically joined Deloitte in 2018, and yeah, here we are today, 5 years later. Exactly.
That's amazing. It certainly is a very exciting technology. And I think it's very encouraging for our audience when they do get to hear stories about, how it's practically being used to deliver real commercial value to organizations. Christine, do you want to give us a bit of a background into how you found your way into this world of process mining?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll start again with a little bit of an introduction, similar to Gabby. So I am based in the Chicago area and lead the North America marketing team at Celonis. And so I became aware of process mining actually through a former employer who had developed a partnership with a company that was in a process mining space. And so I had the opportunity to be part of a Tiger team where we were bringing the partnership to life, and was introduced to process mining through that. We were using process mining, or really saw the value prop for it with our customer base as they were really going through system transformations and moving from on-premise to the cloud. And the company that I was working for really had a kind of a deep customer base that really could leverage the power of process mining to bring a more streamlined approach to their system transformation. So I became aware of the technology through that. And then not long after, probably about 6 months after that, Celonis approached me about joining the organization. And so I had already been intrigued, of course, by the technology, but then being able to join, really some of the pioneers of process mining in the commercial space was really exciting to me. And then certainly from a marketing lens, and I know we'll talk about this a little bit more, but it is really a new technology category of software. And so as a marketer, that was really interesting to me. How could we educate the market around the problems that we're solving with this solution and to create more value? So I come from a little bit different background than Gabby in that, but it's been really great to kind of get under the hood, if you will, and learn more about the technology.
That's key. That's great. And I think, one thing that I see you both doing a lot of is that education, is educating the market on, what is possible with this technology. And I just want to point, I guess, towards the organization that you've created, Women in Process Mining, and the work that you're doing there. So maybe for the audience, because for some of them, they may have heard of it, they may be part of it. And for others, they're hearing about it for the first time. So maybe you want to give us a bit of an introduction to Women in Process Mining and how you're educating an audience and promoting that within this space.
Yeah, I will. And I'll tell a little bit of the story around how Gabby and I actually connected with each other to really co-found with a couple of other women this community. So I think it was just a little over a year ago now, year and a half, that I had a male colleague actually had approached me around a Women in RPA community and asked if I had learned about that or knew about that organization. And so I thought, I wonder if there's a Women in Process Mining community out there. And so I was doing some research and I really didn't find any community of this kind. And so I asked our internal women at Celonis point of contact, and she said, you need to meet this woman, Gabby. And so I quickly looked her up on LinkedIn, and I saw that she had Women in Process Mining in her bio. And so I thought I have to meet her. And so we arranged to have a virtual meeting. And we both had this desire to build this community for the women that are in this field. And although we both had different ideas around the tactical pieces of what we would do with the community, we were really aligned around the mission of this community. And it was really to bring the most powerful women in process mining together to strengthen their leadership amongst each other and within their organizations, to magnify their influence, and then really to lock arms together and pave the way for process mining together and pave the future of it. And that meant also connecting people in earlier stages in career and later stages in career to really help to connect the dots on the power of this technology and what it can do in the business.
That's amazing. That's great. And from yourself, Gabby, what has it been like so far in starting this community, being part of starting this community? And I'd imagine it's a lot of making people aware that there is a community. I guess similar to what you were saying just before, Christine, that there's probably a lot of people out there that aren't aware of it yet, and maybe even searching themselves. Like, is there a community of women in process mining that we can connect with? So what's the journey been like so far, Gabby?
Yeah, it was great. So I'm so glad that Christine reached out last year, because maybe just to quick explain my side of the story. So it was we had basically the same idea around the same time. I know I was sitting at home. It was back in December, and I was like searching all over the internet about, or reading about, like a lot of initiatives like women in AI, women in cloud, women in data analytics, women in RPA. I'm like, there's no initiative community for women in process mining. And then basically I kind of, I know back then I kind of bought the URL womanprocessmining.com. I applied for a trademark. I said, I'm going to build a website, and I will search for people who would like to join the path, right? Or to join, this great journey. And then, basically Christine reached out, and it was kind of a perfect match. And we said, let's do it together, basically, because only then we can like move faster and grow bigger, right? And that's how it was also in the last couple of months. So of course, it's a lot what we need to do, because our vision is big, and we have a lot of activities we're working on. But as Christine said, it's not only just the two of us. We have like 3 to 5 more folks on the team who are supporting us, or supporting basically the community to grow every day and every week. And I'm glad what we kind of achieved already after a year, because just to give you some examples, we also have kind of a LinkedIn group, right, where we have basically all our members in there. And we already can say that after a year, we have over 450 members in this group, which is a great achievement. And I think we can be really proud of ourselves. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's amazing. And for all of those that have joined, what is the experience like, or what's the feedback you've been receiving from these people joining this community? Obviously, it's very early days when we compare it to the vision and where you guys are heading, but what has the response been like so far?
I think it's been all positive. People are grateful to be able to connect with other women in this community. And they've been able to obviously connect through the LinkedIn group, but we have other meeting points throughout the year through virtual events where we are bringing the voices of some of these women, and they're participating in panel discussions and sharing their best practices, their tips and tricks, what they wish they knew earlier on in their process mining journey. And then we've also had an opportunity to meet in person several times. And those have been really rich discussions as well, where, again, women and allies are coming together and saying, what is it that makes women maybe different, or gives them an edge in the company, just stand alone. But then also you take that combined now with this knowledge that they have in this, really powerful a piece of technology, and how could they bring that together? So it's been a really positive response, and I would say in kind of the early days, and we're already seeing, more interest for local chapters to be formed, for, partnerships with universities to be formed as well. And I think all of those really help us to fulfill that mission, which is the paving the way together and there's different phases in the journey. And we're really excited to be able to lock arms with some of these other organizations that, again, can help to take the community forward.
Great. That's awesome. And do you think that there is, when it comes to the topic of process mining, do you think that there is maybe a hesitation around what this field entails? I guess the perception of like what is actually process mining. I mean, I think some people out there, they would think of data, very obviously data is a huge part of it, but a certain type of person would really, resonate with process mining. Whereas I feel like when you actually explore it, it's very exciting for a whole range of people. So is that something that you've noticed amongst the community, is that, there's a hesitation around, what is process mining? How can I play a role? What does that look like for me? And is my skill sets, suited to the task, so to speak?
Mm-hmm. Gabby, do you want to take that maybe with some of your work?
Yeah, sure. So basically, I mean, you're right, Daniel. I think that's a good question. So basically what we can see, or basically which people we would like to also take to our community, right? Are not people, as you just said, like data analytics people or data engineers who know like how to code or how to transform the data. And that's exactly what we are not achieving. Yes, that's great. And we need, of course, more girls and women who code, and we need to support this as well. But for example, we see it in our community as well that we have people who work for process mining software firms in HR, right? So, or in marketing, right? So, or in sales. It doesn't matter like which department you are or which job profile you are. If you're connected to the topic of process mining, you have a voice, and you have a right to be here, and we are welcome to join our community. And we would like to connect with you as well, because that's the beauty of it, because there's so many different roles and jobs around process mining that we would like to, just connect with everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I think if we zoom out, processes touch every person in an organization. Mm-hmm. Processes are everywhere, whether you realize it or not. And from your senior leaders all the way down to the frontline employees. So as Gabby's saying, whatever area of the organization you're sitting in, process mining can play a part, and it's a very valuable tool, very powerful tool that can be deployed in those areas. Christine, you mentioned something before that talking about in building this community. In some cases, regarding process mining, women may have an edge in this particular topic. Can we kind of crack that open and explore that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, we actually in one of our live events that we had in person, one of the really cool things that we did was we had a breakout session at one of our conferences. And in that discussion, we broke up into six different groups. And each group had a different question that they discussed among their working group. And then at the end, we went around and asked one person to share from each of the groups so we could learn. And so one of the learnings out of that, or one of the questions, was around leadership within organizations, and what were some of the ingredients of leaders. And what came out in that discussion also, connected with an article that I had read in HBR around this kind of the next wave of leaders and what's required. And really, you see that empathy is one of the leading traits and skills that a next generation leader should have. And as we looked at that, obviously that can be present in any type of person, but that was something that the women in the community said that they felt was a special edge for themselves, is that they had this empathy within the organization. And why they thought it was so powerful connected to process mining is that it is a new technology. And so new can sometimes be very scary for people. I think, some people really thrive off of change. Some people have learned to adapt to change because, again, either their personal or professional life has demanded it. And then some people just really, really do not like change. And so when you just kind of expose yourself to something new, you're welcoming this kind of level of change. So either you're welcoming it yourself, or maybe your manager or someone else in the organization is bringing that in. And so we really kind of talked about the change management element and the education. And so connecting it back to the empathy is how you could put yourself in the shoes of the person that would maybe be receiving the information about, again, something new technology, new process, new change, and be able to articulate to them how this could make their job better or create even more value in the organization, rather than, a fear that says it's another technology that's coming in. Could this be a threat to me, and my job, or maybe the way that I've been performing in my job, as well. And I think the other thing that, we've noticed, as certainly this is my marketing lens, is marketing about process mining in different markets is very different. So in the US, there's kind of a different cultural element. So we're not quite as open in terms of like revealing, hey, this is where all the problems are within the organization. It's not really a comfortable, place. And so it really takes a unique, leader, someone that's brave, to say, I really want to bring this into the organization because this is something new. We haven't actually been able to see with these eyes before, if you will, into the organization. So it's not for lack of trying. It's just that we couldn't compute this amount of data, at this scale to be able to see, our business in this way. And now that now we're armed with information to go and create change and create improvements and have a real business impact. So really a couple of, obviously different elements, but I think a lot of it was around the change that happens and the fear, and how some of the strengths that women bring in their roles in leadership can really play a positive part in that change.
Yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, and I think it requires a lot of humility because of how transparent it can be. It does expose a lot of things, and I think that's why there are, as well as in the US, there's other cultures that I'm aware of that, it would be quite exposing and maybe not welcomed because it is showing you exactly what's going on according to the data. And I just want to actually mention that for those that are listening to this live right now, we do have a Q&A panel there. So we would love for you to submit any questions that you might have for Gabby or Christine. It should be down the bottom of your viewing window there. It says Q&A. Just pop your questions in there. We may not be able to get around to all of them, but if you start popping your questions in there, if you've got any, then we'll try and get around to a few of them. So. But thanks for that, Christine. One thing I wanted to dive into next is for those that are listening to this right now, that maybe you're piquing an interest. They're a woman in an organization, and maybe they're not in the field of process mining just yet, but it's something that they want to explore further. What advice would you give to a woman who is potentially interested in pursuing a career in process mining?
Yeah, I think maybe I'll take that first. And then, I think the first thing is, first of all, you're happy to contact us first, right? So we're here, basically, you can reach out to either me or Christine directly over LinkedIn, or you can just, first of all, visit our website, womaninprocessmining.com, and see, first of all, kind of what we're doing, what we are offering. We have, for example, also launched a mentorship program where we can connect you basically to some mentors who are working in these fields for years now, or basically not only process mining, who are great leaders in the field of process management in general. So I think this could be one way how to kind of learn more about process mining from somebody who has hands-on experience. I would definitely recommend that first. You can also find us, of course, on LinkedIn. If you just type in Woman in Process Mining, you will find basically our page and our LinkedIn group where you can, of course, request to join. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's so many great, resources. Obviously, our community is one of them, but since this is just a larger field where many people are getting education on, I would, encourage kind of self discovery, if you will. And that's the advice that I always give, kind of regardless of what is new is, there's a lot of resources out there around process mining, of course, from the academic, but then there are other, kind of commercial, if you will, type of stories and resources that you can have access to. And so I think, researching those, and of course, the ones that are probably that resonate really easily are customers that are using it. So certainly through, different organizations that support process mining, as they share stories of their customers, then you're able to get that more practical, understanding as well. And Gabby mentioned, this earlier, but I want to emphasize it, during this part of the discussion as well, which is you don't have to be technical to be in this, in this field. There's so many different roles. And I think this is really in the tech community as large. There's a lot of different ways to get into tech. And so if the topic of process mining is just interesting to you, it was interesting to me because I thought this is one of these types of inventions, if you will, that is so simple. How did we not have this technology sooner? And of course, there's some other reasons why, but you say, yes, of course, this should have been possible. So while I'm not, coding or in any sort of the back end, but I just thought the concept was really interesting. And so how could I use my skills as a marketer to, market and educate the audience? But maybe you're in video production. How could you help to tell the stories of people that are bringing this into the organization and, and creating impact? Or, again, maybe you're a writer, there's so many different, fields. Maybe you have a special, skill in being a customer facing role. This is a great way, again, to bring some of those skills into this, field of technology.
That's fantastic. That's great. I think that, whoever's listening to this right now, whatever position that you're in, it's something that you can explore, and it's something that you can encourage others to explore as well and to learn about it. I think it is a very exciting technology. It's going to it's going to make huge leaps and bounds in over the next few years. I'm anticipating in terms of what it looks like and how much impact it can have for the organisations that we work with. Are there any particular female role models in this space that you've both been able to glean from over the past couple of years?
Gabby?
That's a good question. That's a tricky question. I think maybe I need to reveal myself. Actually, no. And I think that's all, not blaming everyone. But this is exactly, Daniel, why I started this community. Because in our space, like in process mining space, for example, when I was looking at, for example, the founders of different companies or like people I'm interacting with, also on LinkedIn, like a lot of people are like, there were not that many women, and that was like missing. And that's why I was like saying, for me, like, I want to create something, or I want to be kind of the next leader who can somebody else look up to, right, in the field of process mining. Because I'm honest, I didn't have somebody I was looking up to, just like for the process stream, except of course my boss from Deloitte, I have to say. She's also a female leader in the space of process mining, of course. But other than that, I'm nobody I can now particularly name, basically.
Mm-hmm. I think from my side, I've been more, I'll say, just inspired by the women that we have met along the way. And again, how they're embracing change and how they've been able to get internal buy-in, for bringing in process mining. And then in some cases, we've been able to witness where, women have moved from one company to the next. And so they have the experience from one company, and then they're able to take it into, another company as well. So no one particular person, stands out, but every time that, I do get a chance to interact with, women that are at different organizations, I walk away really re-energized about the mission of the community and saying, wow, there's so many, women that are, actively working in these roles, and they have a lot to contribute.
Well, you both are certainly pioneering in this space, and I'm sure that a future episode of Process Pioneers, we're going to hear women talk about Gabriela Galic and Christine Hunter as their role models and who they look up to. But we've got a couple of questions that have starting to come through now. Marcello La Rosa says, thanks a lot for the interesting podcast. How do you make sure process mining sticks in an organization? In your experience, what challenges did you have to overcome to avoid process mining from being a one-off project?
I can think of maybe something that, again, I heard from a customer, recently, and then Gabby, again, maybe from your experience, you may have some other ideas, but one of the things that we continue to hear, more and more is the way that it sticks is as it's coming into the organization to share it with the executive team as early as possible to get their buy-in. And what that helps with is, again, many companies maybe don't have a team formulated yet for process mining. And so it may be one person's interest, or you're getting a bunch of resources that are spending part of their time on a particular solution. So I think being able to get the buy-in early on so that it's, funded and supported in a way in the organization that allows the time investment to then you can see the value out of it would probably be one of the themes that I hear, again, a lot whenever I'm interacting with people, is to get that executive buy-in early, and then also to have regular checkpoints about, and not just kind of like the implementation of the project necessarily, although that's a huge piece of it, but really these are the goals that we set out at the beginning, and doing checkbacks in to say, are we reaching the goals, and what are some of the roadblockers there, and then kind of creating, again, other avenues for adoption and creating some internal wins, some early wins that then you can go socialize within the organization and actually get some other people really excited about it. We see a lot of people that start in one, process area or in one department within their organization, and then as they see the value there, then they look to expand into other areas. So being able to capture those early wins and then share it with your peers and colleagues and say, hey, wouldn't you be interested in having this type of view for your, department or your processes, is another way that we see it kind of growing like wildfire, if you will.
That's great.
Yeah.
And Gabby,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I totally agree with what Christine said. I see that a lot also during the projects. I think leadership commitment is at the end one of the most important things, and also like a challenge to overcome, right? The other thing what I can see, but it's also basically kind of people related, is when, for example, you start a process mining project from IT perspective, right? And then the IT guys, for example, are super excited to do this project because they understand the technology, they know what this tool can do. But then you have to basically convince the business, who are basically actually at the end the customers, right, or the users of a process mining tool, to work with it. You need to convince and get the business buy-in. So this is basically something what was always the biggest challenge in the last couple of years. So like the biggest question mark, oh my God, can we get the business to like it? How can we prepare everything so perfectly that the business will buy it, right? So I think this is always really a challenge, and to get like all these different stakeholders, IT, business, and leadership, like into all at one table in one room, and to say like, okay, moving forward, this process mining really brings us value. What are the next steps? What can we do like to move forward? And use this technology like long term. Yeah.
And would you say it's a bit of a light bulb moment for some senior leaders where, maybe they're being exposed to this technology for the first time? Is a bit of a light bulb? Oh my goodness. I think you mentioned earlier, Christine, why haven't we used this technology before, or why haven't we known about this?
Yeah, also from my experience, the first reactions are always a little bit overwhelming. But at the same time, because it's just a lot they're looking at, right? If you see, for example, a process explorer, doesn't matter which tool the first time, and you explain like, okay, your process have like 100,000 variants and you increase the spaghetti diagram. It's just like, it's overwhelming, like, of course, but that's where not to start. But at the end, when you explain like the data, when you explain like their business and their process within a process mining tool and show them like what's really going on and show them the transparency, then most of the time, like I never had an experience that somebody said, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this. So everybody was super excited. Everybody wants to move on. Everybody wants to work with it, to be part of this project. So even basically also from client sides. Yeah. So bottom line, the first time it's always a little bit, what is this? Because it's just a new technology. But then if you have them, they're definitely on board. Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's great. Another question we've got is from Felipe Masana. Felipe here from Leonardo. I also tutor about process mining for QUT, so a university based here in Brisbane, Australia. My female leader, Professor Mo Win, has been a great influence to me in the process mining space world. So a female role model there in the process mining space. In Mo Win. So Felipe's question, is there any tool out there that is able to change the original process by applying changes in the process discovered with the process mining tool? If yes, can you share your experience? He can elaborate if it needs more context. Did that question made sense for you guys?
So the question was, is there any tool? So I would answer this with yes. So from my experience, Celonis is a tool who is able basically to do that. The technology behind is called Action Engine. And this is basically what that one feature of this process mining tool Celonis is, to basically analyze the process, visualize the process, and then make basically live changes in process mining, which directly makes these changes also, for example, in your SAP system. Yeah.
Right. That's fantastic. Thanks for the question, Felipe. And Marcello, just a follow-up comment based on the previous question. He just says, thanks. I'm glad to hear we're on the same page. There's one more thing I'd like to add. The business and the leadership should be bought in, but what they've also experienced is that if the business doesn't take ownership of process mining, meaning they move from being supported to taking the driver's seat, it'll be hard for process mining to stick in the long term. And I think that's something that we see in organizations with, that can be applied across many different things brought into an organization where, if there isn't someone internally driving it and pushing it and owning it, whether it's, a vendor that's been brought in, whether it's a consulting team that's brought in, it's not going to stick around long term. So I think that's, a great point there, Marcello. And just on that last one, talking about, a process tool that can change the original process, I think there's, we're going to see an incredible future when it comes to process mining over the next 2, 3, 5 years. We're going to see a lot of these different additions to the current tool sets that we already have, including the topic of, which is quite a hot topic at the moment, but artificial intelligence. And I think, ChatGPT really made it kind of mainstream, more or less, in the sense it brought it to the public eye. And I know a lot of people in my world and private and also in my work sphere have been introduced to this whole world of artificial intelligence, whereas beforehand it was probably hiding away in a pocket of those that were initially interested in it. But what does artificial intelligence look like? Is there much that you guys can sort of talk about at this point, and the developments that you're seeing, the trends that you're noticing, and what does AI, this cross of AI and process mining, look like moving forward?
Maybe I'll take this first. So first of all, for me, currently in our projects, which we are focusing doing my job as a manager at Deloitte, we basically don't touch anything what has to do with AI, like in general process mining. Our customers are currently basically just starting with process mining. So we are really at the beginning for most of them, just implementing like connecting the first tools to the first resource system, analyzing the processes and going down this route. So my experience, I hadn't had experience yet with combining process mining with AI. But I think, some of the vendors out there has great solutions to incorporate that. And also I think with ChatGPT, there are some big possibilities in future, which you can include basically in the tool landscape. And then basically you ask your process mining tool like questions, and he kind of answers you how the process is basically doing. But this is just, I think, still a vision. But let me know if you have a different opinion on that or some other insights.
That's fantastic. That's great. I was just going to
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go, Christine. You go.
I was just going to say what's exciting is there are some of these, as you said, like there's some AI things that maybe have been kind of hidden behind the scene, but then there's other things that are, a little bit more, we're used to it in our personal lives, or if you will, like on a consumer side. And I think as the technology continues to, progress forward, there's going to be more opportunities for some of those, again, personal or kind of consumer level of, whether it's functionality, capabilities, for that to be intersected as the technology kind of continues to evolve in business.
That's so true. I think there's probably many areas in our life where we're already interacting with AI and we're not even aware of it because of the seamless integration with it. But I was just only thinking a couple of days ago, to your point that you're saying, Gabby, about walking into a room and just being able to speak something out, show me, the bottleneck in, this particular process, or show me the top performer in this particular area, or show me who's not complying to this particular process, whatever it might be. But combining that kind of voice activation to getting the response, the information that we need as quickly as possible to enable us to make better decisions. I think it's a very exciting future, and and until it's reality, or until you actually experience it yourself, it's like a bit unknown in terms of what that could look like. I know that when I first heard about ChatGPT, and I was like, I'm going to try this out because everyone's talking about it. So it was kind of like this learning experience of like, asking some pretty basic questions to start with, and then being challenged with my question asking. And it's, I guess, in a sense, it's developing a new skill inside of me. When we start interacting with new technologies, we're like, oh, actually, these are questions I've never really thought about asking before, because we've never had that possibility, or we've never had that information. It's all very exciting. But when it comes to the women in process mining community, what's coming up? What are some events that our audience can sign up to, or attend, or be part of? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I'll cover on one that's coming up, which is connected to International Women's Day. That will be coming up, very shortly on March 8th. And so that is one activity or program that we do have where we're partnering. The community is partnering with a director who is a female who has done a documentary called Woman. And it's easily accessible. People can, kind of rent and watch it. But what she did was she interviewed 2,000 women across 50 different countries and is telling their stories. And so we're really excited. We're going to be having a virtual conversation with the director where she's going to be sharing a little bit about her experience. And so we're inviting anyone to come and join that virtual gathering to hear from that. We'll be having that in a Europe-friendly time zone as well as a US-friendly time zone. So people are welcome to join that coming up on March 8th. And then we'll be back in gear with our regular virtual event series that we have. It will be every other month that we have. And that's, again, a great way for our community to come together and hear from some of our community members. They'll be speaking on panels. and again, sharing about their best practices. And then there's been a lot of interest in starting local chapters. And I also saw maybe one of the questions in the chat, like how can people get involved? So we've heard that that's a need. And so we've identified some local chapter leaders or cities that we're going to get started in. And those communities will be meeting on a quarterly basis so that women can kind of get the face-to-face time with each other too, and start to develop those relationships in their own backyard, if you will, and have those discussions and continue to grow together. So I think those are, for me, some of the most exciting things that are coming up in the short term.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, for everyone that is listening to this, if you do want to get involved, please do not hesitate to reach out to Gabriela or Christine, both on LinkedIn. They've also mentioned the website that Gabby put together, womeninprocessmining.com, with dashes in between, I believe.
Yes.
And so there's all the information there. There's a LinkedIn group as well, a fantastic community. So I would encourage you to reach out, have the conversation. If you're hearing about process mining for the first time, then talk to these women, because they are pioneering in this space. And I think that you're going to learn a lot from them. And I think that's, community is so important. It's so important that we do this with others, and we'll be able to go so much further and so much faster when we surround ourselves with like-minded people that are on a similar journey to us. So again, I'd encourage you, connect with these two, jump on their website. If you are a woman, connect into their Women in Process Mining community. I'm sure you're going to glean a lot. But that's all we have time for today. Gabby and Christine, I just want to thank you so much for sitting down with me. I've certainly been learning a lot from you both. I think this is a very exciting space in process mining. I think this is an incredible community that you've started with Women in Process Mining, and I'm sure we're going to continue to see that flourish and grow over the coming months and years. So on behalf of the Process Pioneers community, thank you. Thanks so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much for having us. We really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you, Daniel.
Great. Well, we'll wrap up the conversation there officially, but thanks to all of the attendees for joining us as well. It's been a pleasure having you tuning in, putting your questions forward. We're going to be releasing this episode as one of our standard podcast episodes on YouTube, on all of the different podcast channels as well. So that will go up in a couple of weeks' time when it's ready to be published. So stay tuned. In the meantime, feel free to go back through and listen to some of the other podcast episodes we've actually done with Gabriela not too long ago on the topic of process mining itself. So go find that one, and I'm sure you're going to learn a lot from that. So otherwise, enjoy the rest of your evening or morning or day, wherever you're tuning in from. It's been great.